Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17, U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit, educational, or personal use, tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, this is dated July 21st, 2024. But the article comes from July 2012. The author, writer Mike Gomez. Cover-up of phile child sexual abuse by Scientology. When reading the stories of child sexual abuse and how Scientology management tried to cover them up, then remember, there's a Scientology policy stating that Scientologists who are upstat, those doing very well, and or making a lot of money for Scientology, should never be punished, while those who are downstat should be investigated. Gabriel Scott Williams reportedly was such an upstat person who was making lots of money for Scientology, and so victim Jennifer was to be stopped filing a complaint about the gruesome sexual and psychological abuse of Gabe Williams. Source HCOPL 1 September 1965, Ethics Protection. In short, a staff member can get away with murder so long as his statistic is up and can't sneeze without a chop if it's down. When people do start reporting a staff member with a high statistic, what you investigate is the person who turned in the report. That's narcissism. Child R-ist, Gabriel Williams, Scientology Sex Assault Nightmare, dated 2 October 2005. A former Scientology staffer is breaking her silence about being sexually assaulted 100 times at ages 16 and 17 by the church supervisor, Gabriel Williams. She was ordered to live with, and then receiving threats and intimidating phone calls when she reported the abuse. Is it any wonder why there's so many of these men or young boys in Scientology doing this? And then when she reported the abuse in a related civil suit brought by Stewart against Williams and the church, she recently received as part of the settlement a generous monetary resolution, said her attorney, hush money. Although the church admitted no wrongdoing, it forked over about $700,000, sources say. Gabriel Scott Williams, California Registered Sex Offender Profile Display. Other files were placed on this page temporarily in the police files about the harassment the Gorman family received. Oh, wait. Is that the LAPD or what? What police are we talking about? Plus copies of the complaint against Scientologist R-ist, Gabriel Williams, who was convicted of sexual battery and sodomy, are now collected on a dedicated page. I'm going to see what's there. Okay, I don't know what happened. Oh, that's for their law firm. Oh, here's another one. Big surprise. Donald Anthony Strong. I don't remember this name. Because, there's so many P-files hidden in there. State of Florida versus Donald Anthony Strong. A Scientologist by the name of Donald Anthony Strong, also known as Tony Strong, was convicted in 1995 to 30 years in prison for sexually molesting 2 girls ages 11 and 13. The children were in his custodial care were in his custodial care. Custodial care. That's why parents can't write off their... And I mean, not all parents are good either. Under threat of expulsion, that the mother not report the incident to the proper authorities, because the church could handle his aberration. Tony Strawn is currently incarcerated by the Department of Corrections, Florida. I'm going to check it out and see what this is. Site can't be reached. This is fairly old, so, you know. Hold on, I'm going to see what's going on with this one. Okay, I've covered Yolanda Howell's statement before, but I'm going to read it anyways. Letter of Yolanda Howell to Dennis Ehrlich. One little baby I knew in the Sea Org got HERPES during a cadet org epidemic. Isn't that wonderful, you guys? A 14-year-old child, by the way, disclosed to me how she and a few other little girls, were leaving the cadet org in the daytime and performing sexual blank for one of the girls' uncles in exchange for money. I think this is Wally Hanks, I'm pretty sure. Which Scientology thought so well of Wally Hanks, they allowed him to open his own school. Isn't that great? A man who worked in the cadet org admitted he was sexually molesting the children. That's also sexual assault, or the R word, you know. Although these incidents were written up, as far as I know, they were never handled. Nope, they sure weren't. And the Clearwater PD, LAPD, they don't know anything about it, I'm sure. Sea Org equals Scientology members who have signed a billion-year contract. Cadet Org equal program for children, so their Sea Org parents can get on with their business within the organization. Low Priority for Child Welfare by Adeline Dodd Bova. So there were people trying to ring the alarm. Even there were women who were Scientologists that got out and were trying to either get their children back and or to protect their children and other people's children. Scientology likes to look at children as property. These were the children of dedicated Scientologists. Students' files revealed previous teacher statements. Oh, here we go. Could that be Mace Kingsley? Of physical and sexual abuse. Oh, Mace Kingsley, that's still open, by the way. All of these cases were reported to the principal. I'd like to know his name, wouldn't you guys? Wonder what he's got in his record. The reports were handled by Scientology alone. Teachers dared not report these crimes on their own outside the school for fear of losing their jobs. Well, you better damn straight know I'd have lost my job just like that. Some bullshit. Here we go. I cannot believe how much abuse has gone on Mace Kingsley, and it's still open. I thought it was closed down. The Mace Kingsley Ranch by Astor Woodcraft, which, by the way, that's where Nathan Rich went. I don't know who else had gone there, but seems like almost everyone that I've heard of that went there was SA'd. I was 13 years old. I think I was 13. I've read this before, but I'm going to read it again. I think the first night or the second night I was up there, I was sitting next to him and had had a few beers, and so had he. You know, because 13-year-olds should be drinking, right? And so had everyone else. That's the grooming. And he put I'm not going to read too much, but he put his hand on her shirt. And I'm going to skip some of that. She said it really scared her. Well, of course. And I asked my friend later, I said, what's Wally Hanks doing? Oh, yeah, that's the guy that Scientology thought so well of him, they opened his school in his name. Or he did. And she said, oh, don't worry, he just does that with the girls. Isn't that great? That's a pedophile. That's just what he does, but don't worry about it. Ex-Scientologist Jane Scott writes to John Ashcroft. What we did not know about when we took our son to Mace Kingsley was that Wally Hanks was a phile who was engaged in illegal relations with at least one or perhaps several of the girls in his charge. Don't you guys wonder how many more are hiding in Scientology? One weekend when his younger brother and I went up to see Jesse, the ranch, it was in obvious turmoil, and there appeared to be several new adults around. Wouldn't you guys love to know the names of those new adults? Predators? Jessie swore us to secrecy and then explained that one of the girls and her boyfriend had run away because she freaked out about Wally sexually molesting her and her not wanting it to go on anymore. Yeah, that's usually what happens, isn't it? Former Mace Kingsley staffer Wally Hanks, after his Mace Kingsley time, started his own school for troubled Scientologist kids, the Hanks Ranch. Isn't that wonderful, you guys? In April 2004, a former student told of the time there in Little Ranch of Horrors. You see? I bet Rinder didn't know about that either, did he? Wally beat the S out of me once for running his horse too hard. There's several YouTube videos of the recording of Wally Hanks beating the S out of this young boy. I don't know if it's this guy, but Wally Hanks loved to beat the young boys. You know, those were his competition. Sound like the Mormons? We had another whacked out Vietnam vet. Well, that's nice. Who was clearly psychotic, stay there for a few months. Oh, that's Hanks. It was a nut job. Living in a tent out in the back of the property. Yeah, he was crazy, but he sure wasn't crazy enough to not hurt the girls, was he? I know what's good for these guys, but I can't say it here. On a camping hunting trip to the Indian mines, he completely lost his mind, took all of his clothes off, grabbed a couple G's, G-U-N's, and took off into the desert. We found him a couple days later. Why didn't he just stay out there? He should have just made it easy for himself, you know what I mean? Kids torturing animals. Older kids making younger kids perform blank acts on them. That's sex abuse right there. And honestly, those kids, I'm not saying that it was okay. One, they were 90%, 99%, they were abused themselves. So now in turn, they're going to abuse the other kids around them. That's how it works with a lot of them. And nothing was done, obviously. They probably continued on to do more of it. I'm sure there is tons more, but I'd have to sit and think about it. Wallace Hanks, but mind you, this is 2012. Scientology page vanished. I bet it did. There's that deny. Here is still a partial copy. What a joke he was. Here is still a partial copy. Let's see. It's probably not there, but let's see. Isn't that wonderful, you guys? Help for you. Bring your young daughters, and I will make sure I help them. Oh, and look what's at the bottom. Take a free personality test. But more preferably young girls, you know. Wonder how long it's going to take for my page to get taken down, or my YouTube. Founding Commodore, what a joke. Founding Commodore of a sailing club for youth. Of course he was a Commodore for the youth. Nobody knew anything, did they? If you did, that's called aiding and abetting. Apparently the MK Ranch was closed. I don't think it is. I thought it was closed, but I think it's reopened or something. Because, I don't know why, but the following explanation was given by the state website. Oh, can't wait. They have one in Florida now. State of New Mexico Department of Education, June 10th, 2002. Non-Public Schools Commission to meet on June 14th. Anyways, they're talking about a meeting. Doesn't really tell you anything. So maybe the one in New Mexico is closed, but they have one in Florida. Isn't that wonderful, you guys? The Mace Kingsley Ranch was renamed. Oh, that's a clever way to so people can't look up the history. I'm going to have to go check into and see if this one's still going. The Mace Kingsley Ranch was renamed Hacienda del Espirito Incorporated, a.k.a. New Mexico Ranch. Let's see if it's still open. Well, I'm going to look into that. I've seen a little bit about that, but for sale, and is currently April 2004 for sale. Note that in Clearwater, Florida, a Mace Kingsley Family Center exists. Isn't that wonderful? With Jeff Averin as Ed Cram as auditor, and Carol Kingsley as president. This is almost too much, man. Life aboard Scientology's ship, the Apollo, in 1968. So they got the Freewinds and the Apollo. We know a lot of atrocities happen on the Apollo. And I don't trust people that are too tight-lipped on it. I don't. Posting of Steve Manning. Working 12-hour days for little or no money. Sleeping in overcrowded dormitories. Oh, this is a boy. Sleeping in overcrowded dormitories with strange adults led to sexual abuse. So here's a boy that got abused. You see what happens when parents get torn away from their children? And again, it is the parents' fault. And yes, I'm not a parent, but come on. Just because I'm not a parent doesn't mean I can't comment on what's right and wrong. Sleeping in overcrowded dormitories with strange adults led to sexual abuse, and all of this in the good name of Scientology. If any of you sick Fs who are in the business today can explain why this happened to me, especially while God himself was on board, I'll be happy to know. So there's another one. I got to put his name down. He's added to my list. My list keeps getting bigger and bigger. I don't know when I have to start on this video, but I mean, my list keeps getting bigger and bigger, sadly. Steve Manning was essayed on the Apollo. So anytime you guys hear about somebody talking about the Apollo, just think about that. It is interesting to note that Scientology asked for exemption of an sexual exploitation. Listen to that. Isn't that great? Wow. It is interesting to note that Scientology asked for exemption of a sexual exploitation legislation in Texas that would forbid counselors to have S with their patients. Perhaps Scientology feared past and present sexual abuse victims would sue them? Yeah, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? Not like they'd get any kind of a vindication or justice, just like all the boys abused in the various, like the Boy Scouts and the Catholic churches. Geez, it just goes on and on here. American Family Foundation, the Cult Observer. Scientologist and psychiatrist. Wait, hold on. I don't really care about this stuff. Well, I care, but I just don't want to read it. Okay, never mind. It's pertaining to it. Scientologist and psychiatrist. The Church of Scientology, an implacable foe of psychiatry, took an unexpected stance toward recently passed legislation in Texas prohibiting psychotherapists from engaging in sex with their current or former patients. I personally thought that was in the Code of Ethics. As a social worker, that was in our, I'm pretty sure it should have been in our ethics. According to John Bush, executive director of the Texas Society of Psychiatric Physicians, the Church of Scientology asked for a waiver because the bill would also apply to clergy who do psychological counseling, like auditing, from Scientology. And then there's the book. So if anybody thinks for 1 minute people that should have been policing this up didn't know, they freaking knew. Think a lot of them are in on it. They're doing this stuff. Scam is debt. Evidence of disturbing neglect of Scientology children. This is from 1997. Chris Owen. When I was a nanny for the first 10 months of being in the Sea Org, wonder how old this person was. You know, the children that didn't exist in the Scientology, you know, the children that are like complete fictitious made up story. I would often pick up the kids and give them a hug or sit them on my lap. Sometimes when I would do this, I would get in blank. You know what boys get. Jesus. This was like a 2D restism, I guess, and sort of surprised and embarrassed me. Oh my God. Okay, you guys. I will leave the link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Peace.